Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, that pretty strong BMF, and this is my very first response video. I will be responding to a question posed by RX78-9 Gundam. He posed this question in my forward press movement video where I was doing the push-ups. Now this is a long personal friend of mine, so I happen to be privy to the nature of his question, but he was asking, what do you do if you can't lift a lot because you've suffered a traumatic injury? So in short, he had a work accident years ago, broke his arm, the forearm bone was severed completely, and now he will have to deal with that, the aftermath of that for the rest of his life, including any lasting nerve damage. Now, I don't know the exact limitations of how much he can lift, but for the purpose of this video, that's not really important, because this will be a response to anyone who is wondering such things. What do I do if I just can't lift a lot? If I can't lift my own body weight, for example? How do I execute this movement? What exercise can I use if I can't lift my own body weight with a push-up, or use a lot of weight with dumbbells or anything else? Now, I was going to originally do this video with dumbbells, but then I realized that if you have weight restrictions just due to your own biology or a traumatic injury or anything else, if you have restrictions, then maybe dumbbells aren't the answer, because the problem is, in order to make a very effective chest exercise, say on the floor with dumbbells, you may have to use a lot of weight. It may be more than you're actually able to handle, which defeats the purpose of the exercise. So, while I wouldn't use dumbbells, what I am going to recommend is resistance bands. Now, I don't typically advocate for resistance bands for the purposes of, say, serious strength training. Certainly not like powerlifting. I wouldn't go tell a powerlifter, hey, use resistance bands, it's better. No. Same thing with bodybuilding. I just don't really find them optimal. Now, there are ways to modify exercises to make them more effective in some sense with resistance bands, but I usually find just using bodyweight exercises or dumbbell exercises to be the most effective, especially for at-home living room environments. But there is one thing, I think, in which resistance bands reign supreme, and that is the area of physical therapy. So, in the case of, say, my friend who has these weight restrictions, the resistance bands may be the solution. So I'm going to show you exactly what we're going to do with these right now. Now, this isn't going to be a push-up, obviously, but we're going to apply the same principles that we applied to the push-up to this exercise, because, again, this is our forward press movement, and throughout weight training, you want to take principles and apply them to various exercises. Okay, we're talking about fundamentals here. As you can see, I have this thing wrapped around me, right? And I want to kind of have it at a level where it's taut. Okay, I don't really want it out here, because then by the time I've pushed it, I haven't provided much force. There's not really any stimulation there. So we want to make sure that we have it in a place where it's taut. We have to actually push. So what am I going to do? We're going to apply those same principles, right? So we're going to put our shoulders down. We're going to stand up nice and straight. We're going to put our shoulders down and back away from our ears. We don't want to have them up like this, because that's going to activate our traps and our shoulders and all these muscle groups we don't really want to get into the picture, right? This is primarily a chest exercise. We want to keep it that way. So, shoulders down and away from our ears. Get in this position as if we are going to do a push-up or a chest press on a bench, that sort of thing. Stick out our chest, because this is a chest exercise, so that is extremely important. And we're going to simply press forward, still have our chest out, and come back. Now, notice when I come back, I really want to accentuate that chest. I want to stick out my chest here. I want my chest to be out when I push, but I want it, if there's a part of the motion in which it's actually more important to have the chest accentuated, it's somewhat ironic that's not actually during the push, it's the retraction when it comes back. And speaking of retraction, make sure you keep those shoulder blades back, because this is about the chest. We don't want to push and have our shoulder blades come out and have our shoulders rolling forward. Stand up straight, chest out, press, and retract. I'm going to show you that from the front real quick. Press. And that's really all there is to it. Now, one of the... And it's that easy. Now, speaking of easy, what if it's too easy? I mean, I could do this for a long time, right? We want to make sure we're at least activating the chest and it's getting enough stimulation that it's going to develop to some degree. So, what if it needs to be a little harder? Well, fortunately, these bands come in different sizes and therefore different levels of resistance. This one by Spree, that is S-P-R-I, happens to be their light band, if I'm not mistaken. They have 3 grades of resistance, light, medium, and heavy. And this is the light one. So if you need something heavier, go with the heavier one. As I would need to, obviously. Now, what else can you do? Well, you can bring back your hands more so that it's providing more resistance before you even press, right? And these things are pretty resilient. So they can take a nice big stretch before they're going to snap. I mean, I've never even heard of one of these things snapping. It would take quite a lot. So I wouldn't be too afraid of that. If you need it to be more taut, and you need more resistance that way, I'd say go ahead and do it. If you're finding it uncomfortable against your body or against your skin, it doesn't really bother me personally, but if you're finding it somewhat annoying or bothersome to your skin or your back, just put on a hoodie or a sweater and that should remedy that problem. And as a final note on the resistance bands, I want to mention one last thing. There's a safety benefit when working with resistance bands versus traditional weights such as dumbbells, because what happens if you suddenly find yourself unable to lift or handle the weight? We're talking about people with long-lasting injuries, right? They've suffered trauma to their bodies, so now they can't perform the exercises that I would have recommended, so they're resorting to this instead. So it's perfectly conceivable that maybe you're doing this movement and suddenly your arm gives out. Well, what happens if you're carrying a dumbbell? You're going to drop the dumbbell probably, and that's going to be bad. Either bad for your floor, the dumbbell, or even you if you happen to be underneath the dumbbell when it happens. But what happens if your arm gives out here? Well, if you can still grasp it at least, you simply let it back and you're perfectly safe. Or if you happen to lose all strength in your arm altogether, it just goes like that. And you're still perfectly safe. So it is a much safer alternative in that respect. Do you know how to... I do a heart thing at the end with my hands. You know how to do that, right? Okay, are you going to do that for me? Alright, so that's what I got on resistance bands, doing the forward press movement with bands rather than a body weight exercise such as push-ups or a dumbbell exercise. Very safe alternative. Bands are great for physical therapy, people suffering from injuries and trying to recuperate or just deal with the risk of hurting themselves because they can't predict what their bodies are going to do under that weight or that pressure. So go ahead and give this a shot. If that applies to you, I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.
Bye.